What if a state mistakes silence for consent? Twice in 1 century. Joseph Stalin once believed that fear could build an empire. Vladimir Putin has placed the same bet. Both men ruled or rule not simply through governance, but through domination. Both leaned on a system that rewards loyalty over competence, obedience over creativity, and silence over truth. And while decades separate them, the chilling similarity remains. Fear buys time, but it never buys success. The bill, as always, is paid by ordinary Russians. This is not just about Stalin, nor about Putin. This is about a system, a repeating cycle of mistakes that punishes the very people it claims to protect. The weight of two shadows. Joseph Stalin, the man who transformed the Soviet Union from a peasant society into an industrial and military superpower, but at a cost written in blood. His rule was marked by forced collectivization, mass purges, gulags, and a climate of terror so suffocating that even his most loyal allies slept with the fear of a midnight knock at the door. For Stalin, paranoia was not a weakness, it was policy. Vladimir Putin, the former KGB officer who navigated the chaos of post-Soviet collapse to become Russia's longest-serving leader since Stalin himself. He promised order and prosperity after the humiliations of the 1990s. Yet today, his choices have led Russia into a grinding war, crippling sanctions, and a deepening international isolation. Two men, separated by time but bound by patterns. Both elevated control above competence. Both relied on fear as their glue of governance. And both reveal the same truth. Repression may silence dissenting voices, but it cannot silence reality forever. The error of centralization. Stalin built a state where every decision flowed upward to him. Ministers, generals, even scientists learned quickly that telling the truth was dangerous. One wrong word could mean exile to the gulag, or worse, a midnight knock at the door. This hyper-centralization crippled the Red Army. Stalin's purges of the 1930s gutted the officer corps, leaving the Soviet Union dangerously unprepared when Nazi Germany invaded in 1941. For the first months of the war, disaster followed disaster. Entire divisions were destroyed, cities fell, millions were taken prisoner, all because loyalty mattered more than competence. Fast forward to Putin's Kremlin. Loyalty, again, is the currency of power. Advisors who question him are silenced or pushed aside. Independent media outlets have been shuttered. Critics are labeled traitors, jailed, or exiled. Decisions about war, economy, and foreign policy are increasingly made in smaller and smaller circles of trust. The result? Strategic blindness. Just as Stalin misread Hitler's intentions, Putin misread the resolve of Ukraine, the unity of NATO, and the power of Western sanctions. When fear closes every feedback loop, leaders become prisoners of their own illusions. Fear breeds control, but it kills accuracy. Guns over butter. Stalin believed prosperity could wait. He poured resources into heavy industry, tanks, aircraft, and weapons of war. The Soviet people were told to endure sacrifice after sacrifice, famines, shortages, forced labor, for the sake of building socialism. Guns over butter was not just a slogan, it was policy. Millions paid the price. Putin, too, has chosen the military road. Russia's economy, long dependent on oil and gas, has been redirected into sustaining a costly war machine. Sanctions have cut off technology imports, industries have slowed, and inflation has bitten deeply into ordinary households. The Kremlin calls it resilience. But for the Russian family facing rising prices and shrinking freedoms, it feels like déjà vu. The state demands sacrifice for an abstract vision of national glory. History shows the truth. When leaders prioritize weapons over welfare, prosperity postponed is prosperity denied. The geopolitical trap. Stalin believed that creating a buffer zone of satellite states would secure the Soviet Union from future invasion. Eastern Europe was transformed into a wall of client regimes, each forced into submission. But instead of security, it hardened the West into unity and set the stage for the Cold War. Putin's vision is eerily similar. His wars in Georgia, Crimea, and finally Ukraine were intended to push back Western influence and secure Russia's borders. Instead, the opposite happened. NATO expanded. Countries that were once neutral, like Finland and Sweden, rushed to join the alliance. The lesson is brutally simple. When you push borders, your opponents push alliances. The blindfold of propaganda. In Stalin's Soviet Union, bad news never traveled upward. Propaganda painted the nation as strong, prosperous, and united. Admitting failure was not only dangerous, it was unthinkable. That blindness cost millions of lives during famines, wars, and failed economic experiments. Putin's Russia operates in a digital age, but the pattern is the same. Media outlets are controlled or destroyed. Social networks are censored. New laws make it a crime to call war a war. Reports reaching the Kremlin are carefully polished, stripped of bad news. But propaganda works both ways. It deceives the population, yes, but it also deceives the ruler. Stalin blinded himself. Putin risks doing the same. A state without criticism is a state without vision. Who pays the price? Both Stalin's Soviet Union and Putin's Russia turned their citizens into expendable fuel for the ambitions of a single ruler. Under Stalin, entire populations were uprooted through mass deportations. Millions vanished into gulags, their lives consumed by forced labor in frozen camps. Purges decimated not only the political elite, but ordinary workers, teachers, even farmers accused of imagined disloyalty. Famines, many man-made, left millions dead, while survivors carried the weight of generational trauma, silence, and fear. Families were torn apart for decades, their histories erased by state terror. Under Putin, the tools are modern, but the logic is familiar. Protesters face swift arrest, journalists are silenced or exiled, and families bury soldiers sent to fight in a war many never supported. Ordinary Russians pay through inflation, sanctions, and shrinking opportunities, while oligarchs and elites remain insulated. In both cases, imperial dreams are luxuries, purchased with the lives of people who never ordered them. The differences that matter. To be fair, Russia today is not the Soviet Union of Stalin's time. Stalin presided over a command economy where every ton of steel and every loaf of bread was dictated by the state. Putin, by contrast, rules over an authoritarian state capitalist system, one that allows oligarchs, corporations, and private wealth to exist, so long as they bend to Kremlin authority. Stalin's repression was slow, grinding, and absolute, swallowing millions of lives through gulags, purges, and famine. Putin's is narrower, faster, and digital, built not on endless camps, but on targeted arrests, assassinations, surveillance, and the erasure of dissent through state-controlled media and online censorship. The world they faced is also radically different. Stalin's Soviet Union existed in a binary Cold War reality, where two superpowers carved the globe into rigid ideological camps. Putin's Russia, by contrast, is entangled in a globalized, technology-driven marketplace. His isolation is costlier, his missteps magnified by interdependence, sanctions, and the speed of modern information. In Stalin's day, the truth of famine in Ukraine or mass executions in Moscow could be buried for years. In Putin's Russia, lies unravel in real time, revealed by smartphones, satellites, and viral leaks. And yet, despite these differences, the echoes are undeniable. Both men built systems rooted in control, suspicion, and fear. Both mistook silence for loyalty. Both sacrificed prosperity at home for prestige abroad. And both revealed the fatal flaw of authoritarian rule. Power hoarded in fear becomes brittle. Lessons written in blood. Lesson 1. Fear may secure a throne, but it cannot secure victory. Stalin's terror silenced critics, but blinded him to reality. Disastrous purges decapitated his military before Hitler's invasion. Putin's repression has crushed dissent, but it has also left him surrounded by sycophants, unwilling to deliver hard truths about war and losses. Lesson 2. A military-first economy always sends the bill to households. Stalin built tanks while peasants starved. Putin funds war while ordinary Russians face inflation, shortages, and declining living standards. Lesson 3. Buffer zones breed counter-alliances. Stalin carved Eastern Europe into a defensive wall, but it provoked NATO's creation. Putin's drive to secure Ukraine has only expanded NATO, pulling his enemies closer. Lesson 4. Propaganda may silence dissent, but it blinds leaders most of all. Stalin drowned his people in slogans of progress, yet lived in terror of conspiracies that were often imaginary. Putin's propaganda machine insists the war's going well, but the more he believes it, the further reality slips away. History does not repeat itself. It punishes those who ignore it. Stalin learned in blood. Putin, perhaps, is learning the same lesson now. The question of wisdom. Stalin's USSR collapsed decades after his death, but the scars remain. Putin's Russia is still writing its story, but the patterns are familiar. The question is not whether Russia is strong. The question is whether it is wise. Because in the end, empires built on fear do not last. They collapse under the weight of their own mistakes. History doesn't repeat, but in Russia's case, it rhymes. And the rhyme scheme is always expensive.